Welcome back to Eye of the Storm, a St. John's video series presented by the New York Post. All right, so let's start with this because St. John's, they got picked ahead of UConn to win the Big East. What do you think that says about the program's perception heading into year 3 under Rick Pitino?
You look, they're preseason number 5 in the AP poll, which is the highest ever in program history. It's hard to find a national ranking or poll where they're not a top 10 team. I mean, they brought in the top transfer class in the country. They bring in one of the best two-way forwards, out there in Zuby Ejiofor. They have Rick Pitino. I think they're better on paper than they were last year. Now, is it going to translate? We'll see. They have a very different team. They have better shooting. I think there's no question about that. They have more depth, especially up front. I think their front court is as good as there is in the country. Now, everyone's going to wonder about the point guard situation. That's going to be the big question. Last year the question was shooting. This year it's going to be point guard. They have Dylan Darling, Big Sky player there from Idaho State, who's probably going to come off the bench. He's like the one true point guard. And I think you'll see a lot of Dylan Mitchell as like a point forward. You'll see some of, Isaiah Sellers, the Stanford transfer, Ian Jackson a little bit on the ball. But, that's the real question is, do they have that point guard, and is that going to lower their ceiling?
Yeah, that's a big question with them. We'll get to Dylan Mitchell, who you mentioned there. We'll get to him a little bit later. There's a lot of expectations with this team, obviously now. You said that you think they could be better than they were last year, and a lot of people feel that way. But what have you seen or heard from practices that validates those expectations that we have right now in the preseason?
They had 2 exhibition games, and the second one was against Michigan, who's preseason number 7. They lost in overtime, but the front court was tremendous. And they're facing, Michigan has a front court where they have 2 7-footers, and then they have Yaxel Lendeberg, who's one of the best forwards in the country. They're not going to face a front court nearly as good as Michigan in the league all year. I mean, the only front court they're going to face that's even on par with Michigan maybe is Kentucky when they go down to Atlanta and play them. I mean, this front court with Ejiofor, with Dylan Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, Ruben Prey is as good as there is in the country. I mean, they more than held their own against Michigan. Ejiofor was tremendous. You saw Bryce Hopkins and Mitchell were both very good. They're going to give just teams in this league. There aren't teams in this league that are going to be able to match up with them inside. Now it's on the guards to stretch the floor and hold their own, so teams just can't completely collapse in the paint. But this front court is by far the best that I've seen St. John's when I've covered the team, and it's probably as good as they've ever had. I mean, they have 4 really, really good forwards, and most years if St. John's has 2, it's a lot.